The immune system is a complex network of cells, organs, and tissues that assist in defending the body from the invasion of pathogens and foreign material that can cause harm. Typically, the immune system can be divided into three lines of defense that make up the entire immune system. The first two lines of defense are part of the innate immune response, which is a non-specific response that is the same for all pathogens and is not influenced by past exposure to these viruses or bacteria. The first line of defense are the physical and chemical barriers of the body. They are in place to prevent the entry of pathogens. Example of physical barriers include skin that forms a protective layer around us, making it difficult for pathogens to break through, as well as mucous membranes that line passages into the body that are exposed to the outside world. The sticky surface makes it difficult to enter further into the body as the pathogens get stuck to sides. If a pathogen does happen to enter the body via some bad food or poor hand washing, chemical barriers such as the strong acid in our stomach kills them before they can cause harm. In some cases, though, these preventative methods are not enough and the first line of defense is breached. This is when the second line of defense is relied on.
This is Kevin. Kevin had stepped on a nail and there was blood pouring out of his foot. He pulled out the nail and it was old and rusty. His body's first line of defense has been breached and his skin is broken, and thus his body turns to his second line of defense. The inflammatory response occurs when the body's tissues are breached by pathogens. When this occurs, they are met by a force of cells called leukocytes, or more commonly known as white blood cells. In Kevin's case, when his skin cells are damaged by the nail, it allows for the entry of the bacteria tetanus. Mast cells that are located near the skin cells detect damage to these cells, causing them to release histamines. These cells signal other cells to be attracted to the area. These damaged skin cells undergo a process called necrosis, which results in their death. The histamines also increase blood flow to the areas as they cause vasodilation, so capillaries closer to the skin expand, allowing more blood flow to the affected site. The capillaries also increase permeability, becoming leaky, making it easier for cells to pass through to fight infection. As such, Kevin may find that area around the punctured skin becomes red, swollen, and hot. The first cells to the area are neutrophils, which are the most common type of phagocyte found floating in the blood via blood vessels and lymph via lymph vessels. Phagocytes are cells that are capable of undergoing a process of phagocytosis. This involves the detection and engulfment of a pathogen and the forming of a phagosome around it so that it can be digested into pieces. These neutrophils move through the capillaries at the site of the injury and engulf pathogens via phagocytosis and die immediately. Their dead bodies lead to the formation of pus, and thus Kevin should be able to see pus at the site of the injury. Other phagocytes make their way to the site of infection to support the neutrophils. These include macrophages and dendritic cells. Macrophages are larger and can engulf more pathogens before they die. Along with the dendritic cells, they are antigen-presenting cells that link the adaptive and innate immune responses by showing the digested parts of antigens on their surface so that they can be recognized more easily the next time they enter the body. There is another leukocyte involved in the innate immune response. These are natural killer cells which, instead of engulfing pathogens, they detect infected cells within the body and trigger apoptosis. Normal body cells produce MHC1 markers which allow other body cells to recognize them as self cells. When they spot cells not producing these MHC1 markers, the neutrophils detect them as non-self cells and kill them by causing apoptosis. Another part of the innate immune system is the complement proteins, which are activated by the presence of pathogens and assist the body in destroying them. They do so via processes such as opsonisation, which involves the marking of pathogens so that they can be more easily recognised by phagocytes, membrane attack complexes, which involve the piercing of bacteria surfaces, causing them to fill with fluid and die, and releasing chemicals which signal phagocytes to come and destroy the pathogens. In the case of Kevin, the tetanus bacteria that invaded his body have multiplied too quickly for the leukocytes of the innate immune system to destroy, and thus the third line of defense must be utilised.
The adaptive immune system is a more specific response that can distinguish one pathogen from another and recognises them if they've entered the body before, so the response to this pathogen is more efficient. The main actors in this response are the lymphocytes and the adaptive immune response, which can be divided into both the humoral and cell-mediated response. B lymphocytes are associated with the humoral response. They are produced in the bone marrow and also mature in the bone marrow. Once they are mature, they roam in the lymph nodes until they are activated. Each B lymphocyte has a different and unique set of membrane-bound antibodies. Antibodies are a form of receptor produced by the B lymphocytes that bind to the antigens and stop the intruders from harming the body. Tetanus bacteria that is affecting Kevin's cells may enter the lymph nodes through the lymph vessels. If it bumps into a B lymphocyte with a variable region that fits its antigen, it will be engulfed. The B lymphocyte will then be activated as it is made aware of the infection that it needs to fight, and to do so, it must clone itself. The B lymphocyte starts dividing into effector B cells and memory B cells, which have the same receptors as the original for this particular tetanus bacteria. The effector B cells produce and release antibodies, which attach themselves to the bacteria and prevent them from causing more damage, whilst also flagging them to phagocytes, so they can be destroyed. Whilst memory B cells keep a record of the antibodies so that next time the pathogen, in this case tetanus, enters the body, the immune response will be faster and more efficient. Antibodies are a Y-shaped protein that consists of 2 heavy chains, 2 light chains, and a variable region which makes each B lymphocyte's antibodies different. Antigens are proteins found on the surface of pathogens and initiate an immune response.
The cell-mediated response involves T lymphocytes. An antigen-presenting cell enters the lymph nodes, displaying an antigen from a tetanus bacterium on its MHC2 markers. The T lymphocyte with the specific receptor that fits the antigen will bind to the antigen and start dividing into effector T cells and memory T cells with the same receptors. The memory T cells remember this antigen so the body can respond more efficiently when this pathogen enters the body in the future, whilst the effector T cells release chemicals called cytokines which attract phagocytes and cytotoxic T cells to the area to kill the bacteria. Cytotoxic T cells, once they are activated via cytokines secreted by helper T cells, bind to infected cells that present foreign proteins on their MHC2 markers, and they trigger apoptosis, killing the cell and preventing the spread of infection. This process by which specific T cells and B cells that respond to pathogen invasions within the body are cloned to fight infection and restore normal health is called clonal selection. Due to Kevin's efficient immune response, his bacterial infection of tetanus has been overcome, and now Kevin's body can resume normal healthy functioning.